Hey guys, it's Shortcakey. How you doing? Hope you're doing good. Today, I decided to do 20 horror movies based on true stories. Now, when we see the words based on a true story across the screen at the beginning of a horror movie, we know it just got real. Gone is our only comfort for when we are scared and can tell ourselves, don't worry, it isn't true. Filmmakers have to get their inspiration from somewhere, and as the saying goes, nothing is scarier than the truth. What lies ahead are movies that have adapted real life horrific events to tell their story. Over the years, terrible crimes have been committed and people become curious with these tales. What makes matters worse is that your favorite horror film could have actually happened in real life. Number 20. The Haunting in Connecticut. Now, the film focuses on the Campbell family, who discovered their new Connecticut home used to be a funeral parlor and morgue. It isn't long before the dead come back to life. Supernatural events occur, and the son, possessed by something evil, goes on a rampage with an axe. This Snedeker family moved into the low-rent Connecticut home in 2006. Not long after, son Philip told his mother, "Mom, this house is evil. We need to leave here right away." His words were ignored, and the family experienced the evil firsthand. Their home had previously been a morgue, and the family had visions of funeral workers having sex with the dead bodies. The children claimed they could see and hear the spirits of the dead. Philip became increasingly violent and was sent to a mental hospital. The parents were sexually assaulted by demons. If only they had heeded Philip's advice at the beginning. Famous paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren were called in. They performed an exorcism and cast out all the evil from within the house until finally the Snedekers found peace within their home. The Mothman Prophecies. Now we all know the Richard Gere film, The Mothman Prophecies, which was in 2002. Richard Gere stars as John Klein, a journalist grieving the loss of his wife. Shortly before her death, they had encountered a large flying beast that caused them to have a car accident. He decides to investigate the creature and discovers the myth surrounding the Mothman, a giant moth-like creature with large red eyes and huge wingspan. Its appearance is said to coincide with impending disaster. John Keel, a reporter who investigated the Mothman legend in Point Pleasant, based the film on a book. John moved there in 1966 and discovered around 100 people had seen the creature. Witnesses' reports were similar in description. These included sightings of a large white creature with glowing red eyes and 10-foot wings. Some had seen the beast flying overhead, possibly at around 100 miles an hour. After sighting the creature, the witnesses suffered a painful swelling of the eyes, and in one case, bleeding ears due to a loud noise surrounding the creature. The sighting of the Mothman led to disaster when in 1967 the Silver Bridge at Point Pleasant collapsed, killing 46 people. Other sightings have since occurred, including one before the Chernobyl disaster in 1986. The Possession. Now, The Possession came out in 2012. This one is a young girl discovers an old wooden box at a second-hand yard sale. Her father discovers it is an ancient Jewish box that is said to contain a demon. With the help of a university professor, he attempts to fight the evil within. A similar box has been passed around after appearing on eBay. One owner, Kevin Manis, bought the box at an estate sale and gave it to his mother as a birthday gift. Within minutes of receiving it, she had a stroke. When he tried to give the box to other friends and family, he then tried to give the box, but all returned it quickly, complaining the box smelled of cat's urine. Ew. Kevin finally sold it, but within days, the box was back on his doorstep. The buyer had returned it with a note saying, "This has a bad darkness. After suffering violent dreams, bad health, and bad luck, Kevin finally sold it on eBay to another unfortunate person who experienced similar troubles. The box now resides in a university museum in Kirksville. The curator, Jason Haxton, believes the box contains evil, and he has asked that the box is buried with him on his death, thus containing the demon within forever." And here we have Eaten Alive, 1976. Now this one is quite interesting. The owner of the Starlight Hotel, situated within deep swampland, has a nasty way of dealing with anybody he takes a dislike to. Lurking within the swamp is a crocodile. Should any hotel guest. I'll stay their welcome. It won't be long before they become crocodile food. In the 1930s, Joe Ball, alias the Alligator Man, apparently killed numerous women and fed them to his pet alligators, who resided in the backyard of his saloon, the ironically named Sociable Inn. Joe entertained his guests by feeding stray animals to the alligators. People also believed that several women had become alligator food too after they completely disappeared from the town. Joe's wife lost an arm, and it was believed Joe had cut it off and fed it to his pets. When he came under investigation from the police, Joe killed himself. His handyman confessed to assisting Joe with the killings. The remains of some victims were found buried. Others were never found, leading to the assumption that they had been completely eaten by the alligators. An American Haunting. Now, I like this one actually. Major creep factor. American Haunting 2005. In the 18th century, a witch curses the Bell family. A spirit attacks the youngest daughter, Betsy, and the head of the family, John Bell, struggles to contain the evil within the home. Long forgotten memories of the past rise to the surface, and John has to face real and personal demons. The film was based on the Bell Witch legend that surrounded the Bell family in the 19th century Tennessee. A witch, for no apparent reason, cursed them, and objects were violently thrown around the house. Terrible noises could be heard, and the children were physically attacked. Despite the terrifying events inside the house, people came from miles around to have a look at the terrifying phenomenon. John Bell died on December 20th, 1820. On his death, the spirit made a confession. It allegedly said, "I gave old Jack a big dose that last night, which fixed him." John Bell had been poisoned. The Bell family still exists today, and so apparently do the spooky events within. Well, the Bell farm exists today. Later, occupants have heard voices and witnessed strange phenomena, but none has been as violent as the events in 1820. Psycho. We all know that. Psycho, 1960. Norman Bates, the unhinged owner of the Bates Motel, welcomes wary guest with a twitch and a smile. One guest named Marion Crane is on the run from the police and takes solace at the motel. Unfortunately, she's not going to survive her stay. Now, Norman Bates was loosely based on the serial killer Ed Gein. Ed Gein. He had a troubled childhood and had an overly emotional relationship with his mother. When she died, his obsession with her continued. Ed created a copy of his dead mother by skinning exhumed corpses from nearby graves. He made a woman's suit and face mask from the skin of the dead. When the police investigated Ed after a local woman went missing, they found that he had also killed at least 2 women. A decapitated head was found in his shed. The police also found leggings made from human leg skin, 4 noses, a belt made from human nipples, a brain, and other gruesome discoveries. Ed spent the rest of his life in a variety of mental institutions until his death in 1984. Yeah, I'd say he was kinda cray-cray. Coming in at number 14, the Amityville Horror. And I'd like for y'all to leave a comment below and let me know how many of this remake y'all think there is. Now, Amityville Horror, 1979, the original. When the Lutz family moved into their new home, they discovered that its previous owner had killed his family with an axe. It seems he had been possessed by a demon, and the family discovers that it still lives within their house, turning their dream home into a house from hell. In 1974, 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo shot and killed his family with a rifle. In court, he pleaded insanity, telling the jury that he heard voices telling him to kill. Despite this, he was tried and convicted of murder with intent. Did Ronald hear voices? Was he possessed by a demon? We may never know. On the 18th of December, 1975, the Lutz family moved into the infamous Amityville house. When hearing of their home's violent history, they asked a Catholic priest to bless the house. The priest found the rooms to be particularly cold, and he had a premonition of evil lurking within. While blessing the rooms, a sinister voice told him to get out, which he promptly did. Later, when trying to contact the family, he struggled to get through due to a lot of noise interference on the phone. Was something trying to prevent him from speaking to them? The family experienced terrifying events within their homes. They had visions of a demonic, pig-like creature with red, glowing eyes and green slime oozed down the walls. The house was plagued by a swarm of flies. A crucifix attached to a wall turned upside down gave off an unpleasant smell, and a demonic forces physically assaulted them. After a terrifying ordeal that lasted only a month, the family decided to move out, physically and emotionally battered by their experience. The Exorcist. And we all know that scene with the girl with the tongue out and the head spinning and all that great stuff. The Exorcist, the original one, 1973. Based on the novel by William Peter Blatty. The film is directed by William Friedkin and is now considered to be one of the scariest movies ever made. A 12-year-old girl begins to act strangely after using a Ouija board. She makes unholy noises, exhibits abnormal strength, and acts blasphemously. Her mother calls in 2 priests, and they concluded that she had been possessed by the demon Pazuzu. The exorcism is not going to be an easy one. The film was based on a real-life incident of a 13-year-old boy named Ronald Doe. He became possessed by a demon after using an Ouija board. His desperate family turned to the Catholic Church, who declared the boy needed to be exorcised. He was sent to a Jesuit hospital, where staff tried to contain his troubling behavior. Father Hughes was the first to try to exorcise the possessed boy, who was screaming aggressively and levitating from the bed. Father Hughes asked the demon its name. A voice came from Ronald's mouth saying, "I am Legions." This indicated there were multiple demons living within him. The first exorcism failed when Ronald attacked Father Hughes with a broken bed spring. The priest had to take time away to heal. So, Father Bowden was called in. After a horrific and exhausting battle of will, the exorcism ended. Another voice spoke from Ronald's mouth. It cried out, "Satan, I am Saint Michael. I command you to leave this body now." The boy went into a violent spasm, and the demon left. The exorcism had been successful. Borderland. Now this one's kind of cool. I thought, well, that's just me. Borderland 2007. 3 college friends head to Mexico for a weekend of strip clubs and booze. Unfortunately, their trip does not turn out as expected, and they are forced to do battle with a human sacrificing cult. Now this is about Adolf de Jesus Castano, or Jesus Castano. Adolf de Jesus Costanzo, a drug dealer and cult leader who practiced ritual animal sacrificing during the 1980s. Inspired the film. It was through this voodoo spells were responsible for the success of the drug cartels he supported. Adolf made some powerful enemies, and it is thought he turned to human sacrifice to dispose of them. Around 20 people were killed, mainly from rival cartels, and their body parts were allegedly used in ritual sacrifices. Body parts of the dead were later found, including ears, eyes, and in one case, the spinal column of an unfortunate victim. Adolf's henchmen abducted pre-med student Mark Kilroy from Texas while he was on spring break with friends in Mexico. They murdered him with machetes, and his mutilated body was later found in a shallow grave along with 14 other bodies. The cult leader was eventually caught and shot to death by the Mexican Special Police in 1989. On investigating his ranch, the police discovered mutilated corpses, a dead cat, and a human brain. All were evidence of sacrificial voodoo practices. Open water. 2003. A married couple on a scuba diving trip found themselves stranded after the boat they traveled on accidentally leaves them in the middle of shark-infested waters. In 1998, American tourists Tom and Ellen Lundgren disappeared from their round-the-world trip. They had scuba dived from a passenger boat, but on surfacing, they discovered the boat had left without them. When the boat's crew realized their mistake, the search began, but to no avail. Several months later, fishermen found a dive slate which read, "To anyone who can help us, we have been abandoned on Agincourt Reed. Please help us. Come to rescue us before we die. Help." The couple's diving equipment later washed up ashore. There was no evidence of shark attack, but as their bodies had never been discovered, there has been no conclusive evidence to mark their demise. The Hills Have Eyes, 1977. A family's holiday is cut short when their car breaks down in the Nevada desert. To make matters worse, they meet a family of cannibals who are hunting for their next meal. The film was based on the legend of Alexander Sewanee Bean, who, in the 15th century, raised a large family through incest in Scotland. This family would ambush travelers under the cover of night, take them back to their cave, dismember and eat them. Local villagers searched for those who had vanished, but with no success. One night, the Bean family ambushed the wrong person. They attacked a married couple and mutilated the wife. However, the husband put up a brave fight, keeping the savages at bay. During the conflict, a number of townspeople arrived to help, and the Bean family fled. Word was sent to King James of Scotland, who hunted down the cannibals. On their capture, the Bean family was condemned to death. The men were castrated, had their hands and feet severed, and slowly bled to death. The women and children were all burned alive. A horrible end for a savage family. The Entity. 1983. A single mother is attacked and raped by a number of demons. Despite attempted exorcisms, the demons are in no hurry to leave. In 1974, a single mother, Doris Bither, hired paranormal investigators to exorcise her home in California. A former resident of the home, who declared the house was evil, had warned her. Doris didn't take the woman seriously and even began to contact the dead herself through seances. All hell broke loose. She was physically and sexually attacked by demons in full view of her children. The paranormal investigators arrived and were alarmed at the bruising on Doris's body. They filmed the attacks and noticed the demons differed in size. Two of the demons seemed to hold her down while the other raped her. Unfortunately, the investigators could not help Doris. They also had no clear evidence on film. Doris left her home, but she claimed the demons followed her to each home she moved into. Nothing has been heard of her for many years. The Shadow People. 2012. A radio talk show host investigates the shadow people after being inundated by callers with eyewitness claims. Initially skeptical, he begins to realize these people may be behind a number of disappearances. Many people have claimed to see the shadow people. They are usually described as tall, male-looking, and with no facial features. Some have claimed the beings wear long overcoat and wide-brimmed hats. Others have described them as a solid black outline. People have seen the shadow people out of the corner of their eyes and up close. The shadowy figures then fade from vision, darting quickly into the corners of the room before disappearing. Witnesses to the phenomenon claim to have experienced feelings of dread, powerlessness, and paralysis. So, do the shadow people really exist? And if so, why are they here? Some think they are benevolent beings who act as our guardians. Others believe they are evil. Suggestions have also indicated ghosts, aliens, are manifestations of negative energy and trauma. The town that dreaded sundown. This one is quite interesting. 1976 this is. Well, the movie at least, 1976. In 1946, Arkansas, a hooded killer terrorizes a small town. The townspeople live in fear each night of the Phantom Killer, as the Phantom Killer looks for its next unsuspecting victim. Based on the Phantom Killer, who, in the 1940s, murdered 8 people within 10 weeks in a small town, Texas. In a small town in Texas. Again, Texas. What's up with my state? In fear, the townsfolk began to lock their doors and windows, fearful of going out at night. People suspected their neighbors. They booby-trapped their homes to foil the killer. And brave teenagers laid out traps in popular dating spots, ready to catch the Phantom in action. The first attack happened in February of 19 1946. 24-year-old Jimmy Hollis was on a date with his girlfriend, 19-year-old Mary Jean Larry. At a secluded spot in the park, the killer struck. Waving around a .32 caliber pistol, the killer ordered them to get out of the car. They were both assaulted, but the killer ran when another car approached. It was a lucky escape, but others were not so fortunate. The horrors in the town continued. People were attacked, raped, and murdered. The case became known as the Texarkana Moonlight Murders. Texarkana Moonlight. Bleh! The Texarkana Moonlight Murders, as the killer only struck at night. Despite the police being on high alert, the killer was never found. One day, the killings just stopped, as suddenly as they began. The Conjuring. 2013. Famous paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren investigated a haunting at a dilapidated farmhouse in Rhode Island, the home of the Perron family, whose daughters have been targeted by spirits. The pair discovered the house had once belonged to an ancient child-killing witch known as Bathsheba. The real-life Ed and Lorraine Warren did journey to Rhode Island's house to investigate a haunting by an apparent witch known as Bathsheba Sharan. In the 19th century, Bathsheba's child had been found dead while still in her care. A large sewing needle impaled through the skull. The townsfolk believed that she sacrificed her child to the devil. The Perron family moved into the house in 1971. Soon, it became apparent the house was haunted. There were smells of rotting flesh, beds levitated, and spirits appeared. Some of the ghosts appeared harmless. They smelled of flowers and kissed the girls goodnight. One female ghost swept up, as evidenced by a small pile of dust found by the family. Other ghosts were not so friendly and frequently attacked the family. The ghost of Bathsheba was said to have looked like a desiccated beehive. Her face was covered in cobwebs and had no human features. A nasty smell clung in the air whenever she was in the room. The Warrens considered the investigation to be one of the most disturbing in their long career. Unfortunately, they failed to get rid of the demons within the home. But surprisingly, the family continued to live there for 10 years. I wouldn't. Prime Evil. 2007. An American news team headed to Burundi, looking for a man-eating crocodile, where they discovered the beast and find it's significantly larger than they expected. Nicknamed Gustav by the local people, a 20-foot crocodile lives in Burundi on Lake Tanganyika. Locals claim the creature has eaten over 300 1,200 people in its 65 years of existence. Due to its large size, the crocodile cannot feed on fish and small mammals, as they are too quick for its hungry bite. Instead, it attacks slower prey, which unfortunately includes human beings. One expert, Patrice Fay, followed the horrific path the crocodile had left in its wake. Patrice Fay, he discovered the remains of 17 people on the trail, some whom were fishermen and bathers. Pat, I'll call him Pat, believes the crocodile should be allowed to live and kept for preservation. Obviously, local people do not agree. While attempts have been made to catch and kill the creature, it still remains alive to this day. And here we have the Sacrament, 2013. 3 journalists investigate a reclusive religious commune known as Eden's Parish. The community appears to be happy on the surface, but the visitors soon discover all is not right in paradise. The sinister father rules the flock, and his motives are not well intentioned. It is not long before the journalists are asked for help from the frightened community. The film is based on the Jonestown Massacre of 1978. It is now known as the largest mass suicide in history. Named after his self-proclaimed messiah, James Jones, who led his adoring flock to Guyana, promising them refuge from the outside world. A self-sufficient community was formed, and the congregation built their own homes and grew their own food. While many of the people doubted Jones's views, they were fearful to express it, such as the power he held over them. In November 1978, Congressman Leo Ryan visited the community to investigate allegations of human rights abuse. An NBC news crew followed him, and they were welcomed by Jones and his followers. But it became clear that this was not the promised land. The news crew was given notes from the residents asking to be rescued. When an attempted rescue mission took place, Leo Ryan, along with his staff and some of the news crews, were killed by Jonestown guardsmen. A short while after the massacre, Jones ordered his congregation to kill themselves, promising them glory and death. Fruit drinks were laced with cyanide, and despite protestations and anguish from some, the 909 people of Jonestown lay down to die. 304 of them were children. Jim Jones died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. Annabelle. Not many of the original Annabelle was a Raggedy Ann doll. Annabelle 2014. A man buys a doll for his wife, but it becomes a gateway for evil after Satanists invade their home and drip blood onto its porcelain body. In 1970, student nurse named Donna was given a doll for her 28th birthday, a Raggedy Ann doll, rather than the porcelain one seen in the film. It seemed to have a mysterious power hanging over it. Donna's roommate was the first to notice something strange about the doll. During the day, it seemed to change positions. Sitting upright, 1 minute, kneeling the next. Sometimes it would even move to other rooms. The doll attacked Donna's friend one night. It glided up his body and attempted to strangle him. Donna called in a medium who claimed the spirit of Annabelle Higgins, a 7-year-old girl who had died in the apartment, possessed the doll. However, paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren totally disagreed. They said the doll contained an inhuman spirit that was tricking them into thinking it was a young girl. They successfully performed an exorcism on the doll. Annabelle currently resides in the Warrens Occult Museum in Monroe, Connecticut, enclosed in a wooden box and adorned with a holy cross. A sign has been attached saying, "Warning, do not touch." Yeah, no touchy the dolly, no. The Quiet Ones. Now, The Quiet Ones, 2014. A college professor, with the aid of his best students, engaged in an experiment to create a poltergeist using the theory that paranormal activity is the result of negative human emotion. Dark forces are unleashed. In 1972, a group of Canadian students embarked on what became known as the Philip experiment. The students invented the character of Philip and created a tragic backstory for him. They conducted a fake seance, and as they had hoped, a spirit latched on to the character and communicated with them. Despite calling itself Philip, the spirit couldn't answer any questions about him. It didn't have any knowledge of real historical events, however. The experiment was inconclusive. Had a real spirit been summoned, or was it the manifestation of the group's subconscious? Was it mental phenomena rather than a spiritual one? There is a footage of the seance available to view online. And coming in at number 1, last and final, The Blob. Now, the original Blob, 1958. The Blob crashes to Earth and begins to eat the citizens of a small Pennsylvania town. There is no escape and nowhere to hide from the blobby mass. The more it eats, the bigger it gets. In 1950, 2 police officers witnessed something that looked like a parachute falling from the sky. On locating the object, it turned out to be around 6 feet in diameter, purple, crystalline, and jelly-like. The blob spent 25 minutes on Earth. We will never know if its ultimate goal was to eat mankind, as it sadly evaporated when the police officer tried to lift it. Only a sticky residue remained on their fingers, the last indication of this strange phenomena from space. Similar blobs have fallen to Earth since, landing in Scotland and the Lake District in Cumbria, England. One man claimed to have come across 10 blobs, all floating on puddles as big as his foot. He thought it might have been residue from frog spawn. Scientists have named it star jelly. They think the blobs probably came down with meteor showers. As yet, there are no definite explanations for the jelly-like substance. Well, that concludes it. Hope you guys enjoyed. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram. Don't forget to leave a like and comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Love you guys. Smooches and hugs. Mwah.